Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Is the border crisis about to get much worse? Immigration coming across the southern border of the United States is already very bad. But is it about to get worse? Title 42 ends Thursday evening. We're going to have a conversation around that with Breitbart.com's Randy Clark coming up at 15 past the hour. He is a 32-year veteran of the United States Border Patrol, and he has video footage over at Breitbart.com of what the streets of El Paso look like right now. You think it's bad in New York City? Go check out El Paso. You ain't seen nothing yet. All of that coming up at 15 past the hour. 30 past the hour, Dr. Jose Trasancos from Children of God for Life is going to be on to weigh in on that story that I covered yesterday in the news segment about scientists who want to grow humans artificially in a lab for 40 days and then kill them just for research. That could become legal. That could become a real thing. And Dr. Jose Trasancos from Children of God for Life is going to weigh in on that story. Lots of stories in the news, of course, to be concerned with, to be sure. We're going to cover all of those and leave the show notes on the website at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. So if you're ever curious about the links to all the articles, all the conversations, all you got to do is go to our website, thestationofthecross.com/ACT, where you can find the show notes, the podcast, the live video feed, even get into the insiders list to get access to the back end. And good morning to you if you're hanging out with us on our private Telegram group today. Good morning. We love having you here. Let's pray. Let's get started. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and now your saint of the day.
Saint Gregory Nazianzen, pray for us. Gregory was the son of two saints, Gregory and Nona, and the brother of two more saints, Caesar and Gorgonia. Today's Gregory is the most famous of the family, primarily for his theological writings and his fight against the Arian heresy. He promised his life to God at a young age, during a violent storm on board a ship bound for Athens. In Athens, he became good friends with the future Saint Basil the Great, and encountered the future Emperor Julian the Apostate. Gregory wished to be a monk, but reluctantly became a priest in obedience to his father, who was himself Bishop of Nazianzen. The younger Gregory successfully helped his father oppose Arianism in the diocese, and he became a bishop himself around the year 370. Eventually, he was made Patriarch of Constantinople, a city he actually detested, where he fought even fiercer battles against the Arian heresy, facing conflict with fellow bishops and even beatings from angry crowds. Once orthodoxy clearly had the upper hand, finally, Gregory gratefully retired to live his last few years in the solitude he had always preferred, dying in the year 390. A father and doctor of the Church, he is also renowned as a patron of poets. St. Gregory Nazianzen, pray for us.
Praise be to God. And now your headline news. Just the News reports suspect named charged with manslaughter in Texas vehicle crash. Officials on Monday charged 34-year-old George Alvarez with 8 counts of manslaughter in connection to the crash that killed 8 people outside of a migrant facility in Brownsville, Texas. Police also said that he was charged with 10 counts of aggravated assault with deadly weapon after 10 people were injured in the incident. The victims were struck as they waited at an unmarked bus stop across the street from the migrant shelter known as the Bishop Enrique San Pedro Ozanam Center. The SUV flipped after running the curb and went 200 feet down the road. The cause of the crash is unclear, but police retrieved a blood sample to test for intoxicants. Biden would veto GOP's border security bill, reported by Fox News. The White House announced Monday that President Biden would veto a GOP-led border security bill if passed through Congress. The bill, sponsored by Reps Mario Diaz-Balart from Florida and Tom McClintock from California, would require renewed efforts to build the border wall, more Border Patrol agents, and more financial incentives for them to do their jobs, and an end to the catch and release policies and other initiatives intended to better manage mass migration at the southern border. Biden's promise to veto comes as the so-called Title 42 is set to expire Thursday. The president has also announced that he is sending 1,500 troops to the border to counter an anticipated flux of migrants. Speaking of which, Breitbart reports Texas military deploys additional troops to border ahead of the Title 42 end. Texas Governor Greg Abbott ordered the deployment of an additional 545 National Guardsmen to assist in the newest surge of migrants crossing the border from Mexico. The deployment under the state's Operation Lone Star comes days ahead of the expected May 11 end of Title 42 migrant expulsion program. On Sunday, Border Patrol agents in the 5 Texas-based sectors apprehended more than 5,100 migrants who crossed the border from Mexico, according to law enforcement sources. This represents nearly 60% of the total 8,700 who crossed along the entire southwest border on that day. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us from John chapter 14, verses 27 through 31. Jesus said to his disciples, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give it to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. You heard me tell you, I am going away and I will come back to you. If you loved me, you would rejoice that I am going to the Father, for the Father is greater than I. And now I have told you this before it happens, so that when it happens, you may believe. I will no longer speak much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming. He has no power over me, but the world must know that I love the Father, and that I do just as the Father has commanded me." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. St. Augustine said, "But there is a peace which is serenity of thought, tranquility of mind, simplicity of heart, the bond of love, the fellowship of charity. None will be able to come to the inheritance of the Lord who do not observe this testament of peace. None be friends with Christ who are at enmity with the Christians." St. Augustine would go on to say, though he was only going for a time, their hearts would be troubled and afraid for what might happen before he returned, lest in the absence of the shepherd, the wolf might attack the flock. In that he was man, he went, and in that he was God, he stayed. Why then be troubled and afraid when he left the eye only, not the heart? To make them understand that it was a man that he said, "I go away and come again to you." Close quote. That was St. Augustine. And this one line, I think, can be used against Catholics quite frequently, especially from people like Jehovah's Witnesses and the like, who would deny, maybe even Muslims would probably bring this up. They would deny the divinity of Christ because Jesus here says in John's Gospel, chapter 14, that it is the Father who is greater than him. So that must mean that he is definitely not equal to the Father, even though he repeatedly said, just use the comments and smell test here a little bit. Jesus says, ego eimi, I am, so many times. John 8, the entire chapter of John 8 is a sledgehammer to the argument of trying to deny the divinity of Christ. But nonetheless, the scriptures are replete with examples. So over and over and over again, Jesus equates himself to God. But because he says this one line, all of a sudden, none of the rest of it matters. Does that pass the smell test? I don't think so. No, it doesn't. Haydock's Catholic commentary said, St. Athanasius allows the same, and takes notice that though the Father is said to be greater, yet he is not said to be better nor more excellent than the Son, because they are one and the same in substance, in nature, and other perfections. St. Augustine would go on to say, for my Father is greater than I, in that the Son then is unequal with the Father, though that inequality he went to the Father, or through that inequality he went to the Father, for him to come again to judge the quick and the dead. In that he is equal to the Father, he never goes from the Father, but is everywhere altogether with him in that Godhead, which is not confined to place. Nay, the Son himself, because that being equal to the Father in the form of God, he emptied himself, not losing the form of God, but taking that of a servant, is greater even than himself. The form of God, which is not lost, is greater than the form of a servant, which was put on. In this form of a servant, the Son of God is inferior not to the Father only, but to the Holy Ghost. In this, the child Christ was inferior even to his parents, to whom we read, he was subject. Let us acknowledge then the twofold substance of Christ, the divine, which is equal to the Father, and the human, which is inferior. But Christ is both together, not two, but one Christ. This is the hypostatic union, that Christ is both completely human and completely God all at the same time. Yes, it is a mystery. Yes, it's hard to wrap your head around, but we do not deny just because we don't fully understand. St. Hilary would say, if the Father is greater by virtue of giving, is the Son less by confessing the gift? The giver is the greater, but he to whom unity with that giver is given is not less. Close quote, St. Hilary. Pray for us. Don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break, Randy Clark, a veteran at the border, gives us the update. It's all coming up next. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Coming up at 30 past the hour, Dr. Jose Trasancos is going to be our guest. And we're going to be talking about a terrible story about scientists who want to grow humans artificially in a lab for 40 days and then kill them all in the name of science. This could become legal. It's a very concerning story as Catholics, and we're going to cover that at 30 past the hour. But there is a brewing disaster at the border, and so many people seem to be caught up into this, suffering even. And I'm looking at video footage right now from Randy Clark from Breitbart.com in El Paso. The streets of El Paso seem to be completely overrun. And it is not getting any better. In fact, it could get worse. He joins us now from Breitbart.com. Good morning to you, Mr. Randy Clark.
Good morning, Joe. How are you today?
Praise be to God. I am alive, and that counts. And I am very grateful for your time today, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your 32 years of service to our country as well. We really appreciate you and all the men and women who serve on our border, trying to do a very difficult job under these incredible and horrible conditions. Can we start there? What is the morale of your colleagues at Border Patrol? How are they dealing with this very confusing situation?
Well, they're doing it day by day. There's probably not a day goes by that I don't speak to friends and coworkers and Border Patrol agents along the line. And I think we forget what they have to look at. You know, they are kind of victims in this, much like those people that are coming without funds and money and support structures. They really don't have a say in the policies. They really don't have a say in what our laws say. They're doing everything they can to meet the humanitarian needs of thousands and thousands of people, nearly 10,000 now per day coming over. And much of those, much of that population is needy. They have illnesses and ailments and diabetes and things like that. And some of them come that are pregnant and ready to give birth. And those are things that the agents see, those that need rescuing, those that are drowning. They take that home every single day, and there's no break. It doesn't get easier. It gets harder. So we're seeing an exodus of people from the outfit that are retiring at the earliest convenience, or they're just flat out looking for other jobs that gets them out of that environment. And that's kind of sad because they're experts at what they do.
Wow. I have to believe we're probably going to see some form of PTSD coming out of this community now, moving into the future. I mean, the overwhelming nature of what they do has probably got to be having a psychological impact, would you say?
I would say that even from a personal standpoint, from what I saw while I was in, it's one thing to deal with the law enforcement side. It's one thing to deal with narcotic smugglers, with criminals. It's a wholly different thing to deal with folks who are in desperation and in need and not have the adequate resources to provide, because many are fathers and mothers and have small children, and that's what they deal with. We deal with infants. We had one, just a real quick story, who the mother was sick and had to go to the hospital. She had a 3-month-old baby that was used to being breastfed. We had to find a formula that this child would actually take because they didn't want to take what we had in stock. So we searched all over just so that baby that could eat. And there are thousands of other stories of where these folks have to go above and beyond just to try and take care of folks that they're responsible for.
Randy, let me ask you about the situation in El Paso. This seems rather crazy to me to see the streets completely overwhelmed. And this is before Title 42 runs out. So there was a major surge, and Title 42 is still in place up until Thursday night. So did these people come in anticipation of Title 42 ending? And what do we expect after Thursday night and it ends? I think we just lost Randy Clark. Unfortunately, we just lost Randy Clark. Hopefully we'll get him back on here in a minute. But what we're seeing right now is video footage that he filmed in El Paso, where he's from. And you can see in this video clip that there are people just everywhere living on the streets, makeshift shantytown situation. And it is a very troubling situation, to be sure. Unfortunately, Randy Clark got cut off. We're going to have to get him back on the line as quickly as we can. But this is the problem right now. We are seeing this overwhelming number, and it is before Title 42 runs out on Thursday night. So here's a couple of big questions I think we should all be asking ourselves. Number one is, what can we expect on Friday morning? Will it be tens of thousands that will start to come across our border? There's tons of wild reports out there. One of the questions I was going to ask Randy was, what's the truth? What can we expect Friday morning when Title 42 ends? Because there's nothing holding them back at that point, especially given the fact that the Biden administration has already announced that they intend to veto any legislation coming out of Congress that would put a stop to all of this. And I read that in the news. They are talking about wanting to build the border wall, to end the catch and release policies, to incentivize and provide support for those men and women who are serving in the Border Patrol, who have to undergo these difficult conditions. These are all things that the Biden administration has already said they want to release or they want to veto. Okay, well, the other issue is, the other aspect to this is, what about those 80,000 children that whistleblower who testified on Capitol Hill, what was it, last week before? I think it was week before. 80,000 children have been released who came across unaccompanied minors, released into America to people whom they don't even know. Criminals, to addresses that don't actually exist. I mean, these are human traffickers or who knows what. And these 80,000 kids are gone into the wind. They can't even track them down. So that is a major concerning story, especially given how many reports we see of these people who come across this border who are raped, pillaged, put into indentured servitude, or murdered out into the wilderness, never seen again. How many thousands of dollars do these poor people have to raise and give to human traffickers and smugglers in order to try to come across this border at all? Randy Clark, are you back on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry about that. I'm glad you jumped back on. Thank you for your time today. Let me ask you, what can we expect Friday morning when Title 42 ends? What is the reasonable expectation?
Well, I'll tell you what, even after, doing 32 years in the Border Patrol, I'm a little nervous about what's going to happen because there's a lot of potential for, a huge humanitarian crisis, something akin to what we saw in Del Rio, Texas, with 30,000 Haitians rushing the border in a few week period. We know some of the population of folks that are waiting to cross in Juarez. The estimate by their mayor is somewhere around 10 to 12,000. I'm hearing in Reynosa, across from the McAllen area, that there may be upwards of 10 to 15,000, mostly Haitian migrants that are waiting to cross. That will overwhelm the system. And I think we hear the government saying, well, we're prepared. But if prepared is we're going to flood the downtown streets with folks who don't have shelter, adequate food, and put that on the backs of local communities or cities farther up north, I don't think that's preparation. I really don't. I think we're probably on the precipice of a huge humanitarian crisis.
What can we expect? There's 1,500 federal troops that are going down there. And then there's another 545, I think, Texas National Guard that are going down there. What will those troops be doing?
Well, on the state side, I think you're going to see them as part of Operation Lone Star. It's Texas Governor Abbott's plan that puts folks right on the border. So they'll be the eyes and ears. They're limited as to what they can do as far as immigration enforcement. They can be there for security. They can be there to stop crimes, but they really can't do anything to repatriate migrants who don't qualify to enter into the United States. They can do little more than watch or maybe on private property charged with a state crime. As far as the National Guard soldiers, 1,500 sounds like a big number, but just divide that into the busiest sectors of the Border Patrol, which is the 5 main ones from San Diego to Brownsville. That number quickly reduces to several hundred for the busiest spots. They're going to be able to help out with logistics. They're going to be able to drive transport vehicles, potentially with Border Patrol agents accompanying them. But they're going to do little to stave off this crisis. That's a drop in the bucket of what's needed for what I think is about to happen.
It seems to me, Randy, I'm no expert. I'm just a knuckle dragger on a morning radio show. What would I know? But it seems to me like our government and those in charge of this, very smart, well-educated people, don't have a plan to solve this. The quality of life of people living on the streets of Mexico seems rather low to me. They're living in shanty sheet tents, probably eating scraps, if that. How is that a better life for them? And so it's not good for them. The fact that the cartels are making billions of dollars in the sex slave and human trafficking trade, let alone drugs and everything else, and our federal government threatens to veto any measure that would try to address this situation. You're an expert. You're a veteran. What should they be doing? What would solve this problem, or at least improve the situation?
Well, I think, first of all, following the laws that the United States have, we have a really robust legal immigration system. Thousands of pages of laws that allow folks to come in legitimately. They have relatives that have careers and professionals that invest in business, doctors, sports, athletes, musicians. There's all kinds of ways to immigrate to the United States, but it does not include just fleeing poverty. And I think we have one faction of the government that feels that the compassionate thing to do is to ignore those laws. But it's not enough compassion that we allow them to come through a port of entry. We force them into rivers and deserts, and the UN has declared it the most deadliest land border in the world. That never happened when I was in the Border Patrol. So we've taken those consequences of enforcing the law, and we've just created some chaos. We've screamed fire in a global theater, and now the government, I think they're having some doubts and trying to curb this, but it's way too late. These folks have left everything behind. They're from Venezuela, they're from Haiti, they're from Cuba. They are not going to go willingly back to their home countries. Somebody's going to have to deal with these folks. And we saw the tragedy in Juarez when there was a threat of removal to their home countries, that they actually lit the facility on fire, and many of them died. Over 30 died in there. So this is a crisis that I think is self-induced by some ideals that didn't go far enough. It didn't include a new law. It didn't include anything like that. There's too much polarity on the left and right to get to something that's logical. But in the interim, we do have laws, and if we would just enforce those, then we would be in a position to remain compassionate and to help folks for generations to come. I think we're threatened by, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to see the United States really is incapable of turning to another nation and offering support and help, because we really can't help what's on our southern border right now.
Yesterday I reported that New York City Mayor Eric Adams was trying to get to federal relief for dealing with migrants that have been bused to New York. And the federal government sent him a small fraction of what he asked for. And so he's now trying to push them out into further suburbs. So we're definitely seeing an impact on these communities. But, New York is one thing. They're going to I think it's like $4 billion by 2024 worth of expenses to deal with this situation. But they have a far greater capability of doing that than towns like El Paso these border communities are small towns. They're going to be completely overrun if they're not already. I mean, this is going to decimate these communities, wouldn't you say?
Well, especially even some that are smaller, like the community I live in. It's a little over 30,000 residents. We have one hospital to treat everybody that's here, but yet we've seen tens of thousands in any given month cross here, and it's very, very difficult with the limited resources we have to take care of everybody that's involved.
Wow. Randy, again, thank you for your time today. I'm sorry you got cut off. I'm so glad to have had you on. I appreciate your insight into this and your perspective. You should check out all of Randy's articles over at Breitbart.com. We're going to link to them in our show notes. But if you just go to Breitbart.com, search for Randy Clark, you're going to find a whole list of them. Great insight. God bless you, Randy Clark. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you, Joe. God bless you as well.
All right, coming up after the break, we have more breaking news and stories, and then we're going to jump into another really difficult story to deal with. Scientists who want to grow human beings artificially and then kill them just in the name of science. That doesn't sound like science to me. But we're going to have a conversation about that coming up next.
This is Zach Rajasic, Director of Appeals and Sponsorships at the Station of the Cross. Thank you to everyone who has donated to our spring appeal. More than 1,000 listeners called in this week during our on-air appeal, and the results were amazing. So far, we've raised a total of $560,000 during our spring appeal. This positions us to reach our goal, and we just need full participation from all of our listeners to make it happen. If you are not able to support the on-air appeal, please help us right now by going online to thestationofthecross.com or use the donation page of your iCatholic radio app. Your donation will be matched dollar for dollar. At our website, you can also view the fabulous spring appeal gifts you can receive. If you prefer, you can call us during the week at 1-877-711-8500 or return the envelope from our mailing. With your support, we'll be able to continue to provide you with the very best in Catholic programming. Thank you for helping us continue to be a voice for truth, and may God bless you and your family.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. Life News reports judge forces school to allow Satan Club sponsored by pro-abortion group. The Satanic Temple will be allowed to keep hosting a club at a public middle school in Pennsylvania after a federal judge ruled last week. The Satanic group, which claims killing unborn babies and abortion is a spiritual ritual, recently launched an after-school Satan Club program at the Saucon Valley School District near Allentown and other public schools across the country. The club meets in the elementary, middle, and high schools. In a preliminary injunction last week, U.S. District Court Judge John Gallagher said the school district was wrong to rescind approval of the club and must allow it to continue meeting on school grounds, according to the Catholic News Agency. Gallagher also said that school district's decision to violated the Satanic Temple's First Amendment rights. Guess what? Allowing them violates God's rights and divine law, because error has no rights. Anyway, Daily Wire reports emails show Biden corruption allegations sent to federal prosecutor back in 2018. According to emails reported by Just the News on Monday, Bud Cummins, a U.S. attorney turned lobbyist, wrote to the top federal prosecutor in Manhattan back in 2018, sharing that Ukraine's then prosecutor general Yuri Lutsenko was willing to share alleged evidence of crooked behavior by Biden dating back when he was vice president. The documents came to light days after House Oversight Chairman James Comer announced that he issued a subpoena demanding the FBI produce an unclassified record alleging a criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national, with a deadline of May 10th. Cummins told then U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman in 2018 that the Lutsenko believed Biden and former Secretary of State John Kerry, quote, exercised influence to protect Burisma Holdings in exchange for payments to Hunter Biden, business partner Devin Archer, and Joe Biden. Catholic Vote reports New York Archdiocese investigating church that stated God is trans. After the Church of St. Paul the Apostle in Manhattan displayed an art exhibit proclaiming God is trans, which depicts the spiritual journey of an LGBTQ plus person, the Archdiocese of New York expressed concerns and is now looking into the matter. The Archdiocese was, quote, unaware of the exhibit until alerted by the media and is now looking into it, close quote. A spokesperson said, if media reports are accurate, then we would have concerns. We are investigating and looking to speak with the pastor of the parish to get more information. The Church of St. Paul the Apostle is highly controversial, especially for its LGBTQ ministry called Out at St. Paul's. The group is known for mixing sacred seasons and symbols with the profane to advance the LGBTQ movement. Guess they're widely known. And you'd think the diocese would know that. But anyway, those are your headline news. Hey, can I give a special shout out to everybody listening to us on the iCatholic Radio mobile app, our ICR team. Praise be to God. So glad you guys are all over here and with us. If you would like to download the iCatholic Radio app, just search your iOS or Android app store. It's free. Listen to the radio stream live 24/7, clear as crystal. Get the podcast version of this show and all of our programs at the Station of the Cross, plus programming, video, all of it is free. You can download it today in your iOS or Android app store. Search for the iCatholic Radio app. Joining us right now, though, is Dr. Jose Trasancos, Chief Executive Officer of Children of God for Life. Good morning to you, Dr. Trasancos.
Good morning. Thanks
Praise be to God. Grateful for your time today. Thank you for getting up and hanging out with us. But there was a horrible story that I saw, and we just had to dive deeper into this. I reported this yesterday, as a matter of fact, but the headline goes, scientists want to grow babies in the womb for 40 days and kill them for research. You know, college whiz. People are highly educated, advanced degrees, Ph.D. scientists, and you would think that educated people would come to right and good conclusions and logic, and yet they seem completely incapable of doing so in spite of all their education. Why would it be wrong for scientists to not want to grow and kill human persons in the name of science? Dr. Trasancos, what say you?
Oh my goodness! What could go wrong? I'm not sure there's an end to that list. This is yet another example of science without a conscience can be a very dangerous thing, and the unintended consequences of this general direction in biomedical research are it's beyond troubling. If we think we have problems as a society now, further commoditization of human beings is not going to fix anything. It will make things quite a bit worse. I guess what could go wrong? Everything. I don't think anyone has stopped to think about what all of the consequences associated with this are. But the potential consequences are horrifying.
The first sentence in this article, it just blows me away. It says, a recent news story describing how scientists in China generated the first human monkey chimeric embryos, unborn monkeys with human body parts. A deliberate and unnatural crossing of species sent shockwaves through the world. I just can't wrap my head around this. Why any scientist would want to participate in this type of research. I just don't understand how humans can come to this level of they want to play God in this way. But yet again, I guess it's just a fallen human nature, and fallen human nature at every level is going to do what it does. And this is just part of that. It seems like there's going to be no end to this. Already we're seeing cloning coming out of China. Has been now for years. They've been working on cloning there, and now mixing humans and animals. I mean, can we expect to see a quasi-human, this is wasn't there a movie made with this with Marlon Brando some years ago? I mean, what are we seeing here, Dr. Trasancos? What is the end to this?
To a certain degree, life does imitate art. And for those that really haven't settled on a position or aren't particularly concerned with these directions, it may sound cliche, but I would encourage everyone to go watch Jurassic Park. This is the sort of thing that, indeed, life can imitate art by running into those unintended consequences. Now, if you look at what the scientists are trying to do, I think, down 1 degree of bearing there appears to be at least some intellectual justification for some of this, and this goes beyond growing babies in the womb for 40 days. This is ectouterine research is going on right now, where they are creating artificial wombs to basically create life, and I really hate to say it because it's not it's not creating life. It's giving it's combining all of the elements in a synthetic environment, but there is it lacks the element of creation. But they're doing this, at least at some level, trying to address transplantation organs, the supply of transplantation organs, and research into disease. It's interesting. Science without a conscience has proven to be very, very dangerous. And a good example of this outside of biomedical research is what's happened with nuclear power. Nuclear power, properly executed, could provide the world with vast amounts of clean energy. And in this case, nuclear power, people tend to look at that genie that is out of the bottle in the context of weapons and what it can do to the rest of humanity. So it's funny that if you're talking about nuclear power, people are afraid of the negative side of things, but in the biomedical research field, it's very, very different. And I find that on one hand interesting, on the other hand troubling.
As Catholics, there's so many questions here. Is a soul a part of this creation in their little petri dish as they fertilize an embryo and hold it for they haven't done it yet. They're hoping to do this because there's some rules that have to be changed, and there's a good chance those rules could be changed, allowing them to do this research, which is incredibly troubling to me. But if they get to do this, and they allow this egg to be fertilized and live for 40 days, the heart begins to beat by that point, and not only that, you got brain, limbs, eyes, ears, all forming. Reproductive cells are starting their reproductive organs. All of this happening by the time they decide they want to kill this life. Is this a human? That's going to be one of the fundamental questions. Is there a soul? The church is going to have to weigh in on this if this happens, because so many questions are coming up. How do we as Catholics think and believe about this?
Well, from a theological standpoint, I'm not sure I have a good answer, nor do I think anyone has one yet, or at least hasn't published one yet. But given an unbroken chain of events, at day 40, that's a human being. The moral questions that the church has to struggle with, first of all, I can say that I'm happy not to have to tackle that one myself. But if I listen to the voice that speaks very clearly inside of me, that is without a doubt a human being, and a human being created with a very, very narrow purpose. And the source of my disquiet, I think, lives there. Procreation, the perpetuation of the species from a scientific standpoint, within the context of the sacrament of matrimony, raising a family. The purpose of children there is broad and manifest. It's all around us. If we reduce this to an exercise in a laboratory, I think this is a giant leap down the road of the commoditization of human beings. It's dehumanizing to all of us. We become a product or a process that serves an end, as opposed to, God's greatest example of creation. We have free will. We have intellect. We have the soul. To take something like that and reduce it to a laboratory exercise it is a gross perversion and an insult to God.
Yeah. Well before I was ever Catholic, light years before I was ever Catholic, I learned as a kid, the ends don't justify the means. You don't have to be a Catholic to know that. I think it's pretty common. Most human beings understand this as natural law. The ends don't justify the means. We can't do a wrong for a good cause. We can't do a wrong to bring about a right. The ends don't justify the means. And yet here, that seems to be the argument. We could cure cancers. We could produce organs that could replace bad organs. Someone needs a heart transplant, we could grow one. This is how we do it. And yet the reality is we could be seeing an entire, shall I say, race of humans being laboratory created just so that their organs can be harvested and sold to the highest bidder. I mean, golly whiz, this seems so troubling on so many levels. And again, I just scratch my head because we live in a society and a day and an age where everybody places so much incredible emphasis on education. And yet education is clearly failing us in this regard when it comes to morality and ethics. So I just don't know what to say here. What the church would have to step up and fast to stop this slippery slope. And yet, as you said, you don't think anybody's weighed in on it.
Not to my knowledge. And the ripples in this pond spread very, very quickly. Beyond the research implications that are mentioned in this article. There are areas of research that have a big intersection with this. For example, Neanderthal DNA was discovered and separated a number of years ago.
Hold that thought right there. We're at a hard break. Dr. Jose Trasancos is our guest. Children of God for Life is the website. I encourage you to check it out. COGFORLIFE. Children of God for Life. COG4life.org is their website. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. But troubling conversation, to say the least. Looking at scientists who want to grow human beings in a dish for 40 days in the name of science and then kill them. It's insane to me. But we're going to continue this conversation right after this very quick break. Don't go anywhere. A Catholic Take will be right back. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain. So good to be on with you. Praise be to God. Coming up at the top of the hour, we say goodbye to the radio audience. We stay on the video for another half hour for the after show where we interact directly with you. You get to drive that conversation with whatever you want to talk about. To be a part of that, all you need to do is jump onto our website, thestationofthecross.com/ACT. You can see the live video feed there, but if you want to comment, you click on one of the links just beneath that, and you can jump into the conversation. Of course, the Telegram group, the private Telegram group is always there. We conversate with them directly. You can join that by being on the Insiders email list, also linked up on the website, thestationofthecross.com/ACT. Dr. Jose Trasancos from Children of God for Life is our guest. COG4life.org is the website. It's an invaluable resource. Couldn't recommend it enough. I've used it now for years and have had wonderful conversations with Dr. Trasancos, his wife, and others from Children of God for Life. And I encourage you to share that widely. There's so many great resources there to check out. But Dr. Trasancos, welcome back to the program. Just before the break, you were getting into some of the nuances of this research and what they've been doing to create artificial, we're calling it artificial human life, but when you take a sperm and cell and you fertilize a human embryo with it, we call that a human, no matter what scientists call it. What say you, Dr. Trasancos?
Indeed. And I organize my thinking around the unbroken chain of events. Just putting a stopwatch to it doesn't seem to change things, at least from my perspective. So today we have a 14-day rule. They're talking about extending it out to 40 days. This has been going on for quite some time. And that 14-day rule means that, that life cannot go past the 14-day window. Apparently there's something magical about that day 14 where it makes the ethical question clear. I don't see that. But that unbroken chain of events, that is indeed a human being. And I think anything else is, man's grand rationalization as opposed to the application of reason. in the name of science, I think we've peeled up that tape, and we've peeled up the corner on that tape, and we're fixing to rip it off of the box. And not just in creating life in vitro, but creating life or forming life that is no longer with us. I had mentioned before the break that the ripples in this pond spread very quickly, and I read an article about a year ago that was focusing on the isolation of Neanderthal DNA and the possibility, and they were and the authors of the paper were very excited about the possibility of taking Neanderthal DNA and bringing a Neanderthal human hybrid to term.
Wow.
Yes, this is a life on the evolutionary scale, all part of God's creation that has not existed in thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And in the name of science, let's toss that out into modern society, create that life without a purpose other than to observe and examine it. The implications of that are just horrifying. And the larger picture here is what we do to our very own humanity. Our Heavenly Father made us all individually sovereign. Marching down this road challenges that sovereignty. We become commodities. Human life becomes part of a commercial exercise because I think all of this has to do with just kind of market implications associated with the research. We can solve the organ donation problem. Okay, there's money in that. Medical research feeds the pharmaceutical industry. We're going to cure diseases. Okay, there's an economic angle to that as well. But at the core of it, if the raw materials are human life, we need to, as Catholics and as human beings, we need to sit down and think about what exactly are we doing here? Because we are diminishing our collective and our individual value.
Years ago, I met a guy. I mean, I'm talking many years ago, 2009, 2008, somewhere in there. Because I was doing podcasting and apologetics work, this guy started following my podcast, and we began to correspond to each other. He was a pharmaceutical engineer, and he would tell me stories about how the pharmaceutical industry in America would very in the shadows, on the down low, pay for brothels in third world countries to get the prostitutes pregnant. They would abort their children, and then they would import those aborted fetuses into America for research because they weren't legally allowed to do that in the United States. And then, of course, we saw the David Leiden videos where aborted babies, born whole and entire, were being sold for medical research for their parts. This is a disgusting and horrible thing that we tolerate, and we ought not to tolerate in our society. It is a grave injustice and an offense against God, let alone the lives lost as a result to it. And yet we're seeing this now going to the next step, as you've clearly indicated. This horrible science fiction become reality of mixing animals and humans, and then the moral and ethical questions that we've already brought up, like. I think they would absolutely love for the church to say, well, these aren't really humans. There's no soul involved, because then it's, like you say, a commodity. Because if they create a clone group of human beings, I think we would say there's a soul involved because they're human. But I think they would want to say no, that they're just created things, commodities. I mean, just think about the implications of this entire group of people who exist only for business adventure. Business, I mean, talk about crony capitalism. I mean, it disgusts me to even think about it. And right now there are Uyghur slaves who are having their organs harvested. At least that's the alleged reports on a grand scale, that they are being harvested from their slave population out of the Uyghur Muslims in China. If we don't do something now, I mean, I just don't understand why we aren't, as a church, being very forceful on this issue, because the implications are grave. Indeed, I agree with you completely. And the implications come down to how you deal with obstacles in the future. If life becomes less important, if we're not concerned about the questions of ensoulment,
and the precious nature of every single individual human life, it becomes therefore much easier to sweep those lives aside if they become an obstacle. And history can teach us a great deal in that respect. To the extent that you can dehumanize your opponents, it becomes that much easier to justify their elimination. And that may sound a little antiseptic, but what we're talking about is just kind of, that is the ultimate worst manifestation of human behavior. Millions of lives have been lost.
How do you think the church, in what form would the church respond to this? Would it come out of the Pontifical Academy for Life? Would it be a statement, a strong effort from His Holiness Pope Francis? I mean, how do you think the church ought to respond to this? What form would that take? What would that look like?
Well, I think it would be a mistake to play this game on the scientist's own level. So bringing the Pontifical Academy for Life, bringing those resources to bear on this, I think is the wrong tool in the box. This is an extraordinarily fundamental question. This is elemental, not fundamental. So the Holy Father should take the opportunity to address this head on and directly.
In the most forceful words possible.
It's a question that, yes.
God bless you.
I'm sorry.
Wow. We're just about out of time, Dr. Jose Trasancos. I appreciate your insight, and I agree with you. I think it ought to come from the very top with the heaviest hand possible and the most forceful words possible. I volunteer to write the statement. Your Holiness, if you're looking for a guy, I'm your guy. I'd be happy to write that for you. God bless you, Dr. Jose Trasancos, Children of God for Life. Really appreciate having you on today. COG4life.org. Hey, don't go anywhere. We're going to go into the after show. It's coming up next. Otherwise, we'll see you right back here tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about the coronation from King Charles tomorrow. We'll see you then. God love you.